Welcome back, listeners. We're picking up our deep dive into the Monster of Florence case, right where we left off. The 1968 murders of Mario and Lucia. It was a horrifying start to this saga, but in 1974, things escalate even further.
It's like the monster was laying low, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. Just when things were starting to feel normal in Florence, bam, the nightmare returns.
And this time, the similarities between the 1968 and 1974 murders are even more unsettling. Same kind of secluded location, the same brutality, even the same type of weapon used. It's almost as if the monster is intentionally mimicking their earlier crimes.
Exactly. It's like they're sending a message saying, I'm still here, I'm still in control. And this time there's another chilling detail, a cryptic note left at the scene.
Oh, yeah, that note. It's almost as if they're taunting the investigators, playing mind games. It's a level of psychological terror that's almost unbearable to think about.
And it adds a whole new dimension to the case. We're not just dealing with a brutal killer anymore. We're dealing with someone who wants to be heard, who wants to leave their mark on the world.
You know, it's interesting you say that because while the police are scrambling to make sense of these new murders, our own investigators, Andrea and Enzo, are following a different path. They're drawn to this derelict farmhouse outside Florence, a place that seems to radiate unease.
This farmhouse is like a physical manifestation of the darkness surrounding this case. Isolated, decaying, full of whispers and shadows.
And inside, they find things that suggest this place was used for something sinister. Eerie drawings, scattered photographs, a real sense of dread hanging in the air.
It's like stepping into a nightmare, but it's a nightmare that might hold the key to understanding the monster's motives, their psyche.
Meanwhile, the official investigation, led by Inspector Rossi, is also heating up. The pressure on this man is immense, trying to solve these horrific crimes while the whole city watches, waits, and worries.
The sources really highlight the toll this case takes on Rossi personally. He's consumed by it, neglecting his family, his own well-being. He's living and breathing this investigation, and it's starting to wear him down.
And then, late one night, he receives a chilling phone call. An anonymous voice taunts him, saying things that only the killer could know. It's a direct attack, a violation, and it shakes Rossi to his core.
Imagine the feeling, picking up the phone and hearing that voice, knowing that the monster is out there, watching your every move.
And the call is traced back to a payphone near the latest murder scene. The monster's playing a game, and Rossi is caught right in the middle.
But the phone call is just the beginning. A few days later, a letter arrives at the local newspaper, claiming to be from the monster. And this is where things take a truly terrifying turn.
This letter, it's not just a confession or a boast. It outlines the monster's plans, hinting at their next target, a young woman with long dark hair who frequents a particular cafe.
It's a chilling escalation. The monster is no longer just reacting, they're dictating the terms, controlling the narrative.
The whole city is on edge. The police are desperately trying to find this woman and protect her, but with such limited information, it's like searching for a needle in a haystack.
And the monster knows this, of course. They're reveling in the chaos, the fear, the uncertainty they've created. It's all part of their twisted game.
And then, on a stormy night, as the tension reaches a fever pitch, it happens. The monster strikes again.
The brutality this time is even more intense. The message at the scene even more chilling. You can't save them. It's a direct challenge, a declaration of power.
And for Rossi, this murder hits close to home. The victim bears a striking resemblance to his own daughter. Suddenly, this case isn't just about catching a killer, it's about protecting his family.
It's a turning point in the investigation. Rossi's personal and professional lives collide, and the stakes have never been higher.
Driven by this newfound urgency, Rossi digs deeper, searching for any connection between the victims, and he finds one. They all frequented the same library.
A library. It seems so ordinary, so harmless. But in the context of this case, it takes on a sinister new meaning.
And the librarian himself, a reclusive, somewhat eccentric man, immediately becomes a person of interest. Rossi's gut tells him this man knows more than he's letting on.
The sources are unclear about the librarian's role, but it's clear he holds a piece of the puzzle. And just as Rossi is about to confront him, he receives a chilling message, a photo of his own daughter with the words, "She's next." The monster has upped the ante.
It's a personal threat, an invasion of Rossi's life, his family. The game has changed. So the monster is no longer just terrorizing Florence, they're targeting Rossi directly. It's a chilling escalation, and it leaves us wondering, what will Rossi do? But before we delve into that, let's go back to Andrea and Enzo. Remember, they were headed to that creepy abandoned farmhouse outside of Florence. What did they find there?
Well, first of all, just getting to the farmhouse is an ordeal. The road is barely there, all overgrown, and it's like the house itself is trying to hide. You get this real sense of foreboding, like you're entering a place where bad things have
It's
happened.
giving me chills just thinking about it.
Yeah.
So what do they find inside?
Well, the place is pretty much a wreck, Decades of neglect, dust everywhere, cobwebs hanging from every corner. But there are signs that someone was living there, or at least using the place. There's a makeshift bed in one corner, some empty cans scattered around, and then there are these drawings.
Drawings. Like what kind of drawings?
They're crude, almost childlike, but disturbing. Lots of dark imagery, figures with no faces, that sort of thing.
Okay, yeah, that's creepy.
And then there's this one photograph, torn in half like someone ripped it apart in anger. It shows a young couple smiling, arms around each other. It's a stark contrast to the darkness of the rest of the house, this little glimpse of happiness that's been violated somehow.
Oh, wow. That's really unsettling. Do they know who the people in the photo are?
It's unclear from the sources, but it's the kind of detail that sticks with you.
Yeah.
This image of innocent joy shattered, it speaks volumes about the monster's cruelty, their need to destroy beauty.
So Andrea and Enzo are uncovering these disturbing clues at the farmhouse. While back in Florence, the city is gripped by fear and paranoia. The monster's crimes have cast a long shadow over everyday life.
Absolutely. Think about it. Every shadow, every stranger on the street could be the monster. Parents are afraid to let their children out alone. Whispers and rumors fill the cafes. The city is losing its sense of safety, its innocence.
And this fear is amplified by the fact that no one knows who the monster is or what their motives could be. It's like this invisible force is holding the entire city hostage.
And in a way, the monster is. They've managed to instill this deep sense of dread, this feeling that no one is safe. It's a level of psychological manipulation that's hard to grasp.
So we've got this atmosphere of fear and uncertainty, and then right in the middle of it all, something unexpected happens. A witness comes forward.
Oh yeah, this is a fascinating twist. This witness claims to have seen something crucial, something that could lead to the monster's identity.
But they go to Andrea and Enzo, not the police. Why?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Are they afraid of the police? Do they not trust the official investigation? Or is there something else going on?
Maybe they're afraid of the monster. If they know something that could expose them, they'd have every reason to be terrified.
Exactly. Or maybe they're being manipulated by the monster somehow. Maybe this is all part of their twisted game.
It's a real dilemma for Andrea and Enzo. Do they trust this witness, or do they risk dismissing potentially vital information?
They're walking a tightrope, trying to balance caution with the need to find answers. Meanwhile, Inspector Rossi is also facing a similar challenge.
Yeah, he's struggling to make headway in the investigation, despite his best efforts.
Oh, remember, he's dealing with a mountain of pressure, not to mention the personal threat against his own daughter. It's a lot for anyone to handle.
Absolutely. And the sources really paint a picture of Rossi at this point, exhausted, frustrated, haunted by the fear that he's running out of time.
But amidst all the chaos and dead ends, Rossi starts to notice something. A subtle pattern in the monster's victims that everyone else seems to have overlooked.
Oh, what kind of pattern?
He realizes that each of the victims, in some way, represented or interacted with themes of love, beauty, or passion in their professions.
Whoa, okay, that's interesting. So it's not just random victims, there's a deliberate choice behind it. It's like the monster is targeting specific qualities, specific aspects of the human experience.
Exactly. And this realization sends chills down Rossi's spine because it suggests a level of premeditation, a twisted ideology that's driving these murders.
So we've got Andrea and Enzo trying to decide if they can trust this mysterious witness, and Rossi uncovering this chilling pattern in the victims. Do their paths ever cross? Do they share information?
Well, the sources are pretty vague on that point, but they do hint at a connection, a moment where all these threads might converge.
Oh, come on. You can't leave us hanging like that.
That's where we have to leave it for now, my friend. The tension is building, the stakes are higher than ever, and the Monster of Florence is still out there, lurking in the shadows.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the Monster of Florence case. Last time, we left off with a lot of loose ends, a mysterious witness, a possible pattern in the victims, and both Rossi and Andrea and Enzo pursuing what seemed like separate paths to the truth. What happens next?
Well, we have to remember the context here, right? Florence at this time is like a city holding its breath. The monster's crimes have created this atmosphere of fear, but they've also sparked a lot of, well, speculation, rumors, theories, some of them pretty wild.
You mentioned werewolves last time, right? I have to admit I was a bit skeptical,
Yeah.
but the sources actually describe how these folk tales, these ideas about supernatural forces, they start to gain traction as people struggle to grapple with the horror of what's happening.
Yeah, it's like when faced with the truly unthinkable, sometimes the mind wants to reach for something, well, anything, that makes it easier to understand. And sometimes that means turning to the supernatural, to myths and legends. It's almost a way of coping with the darkness.
So while the city is trying to make sense of these horrific events, what about our investigators? What happens with that mysterious witness who approached Andrea and Enzo?
Well, the sources are pretty tight-lipped about the specifics of that encounter, but we know the witness claims to have seen something crucial that could blow the case wide open. But their motives are still a mystery.
It's like Andrea and Enzo are in a constant state of, well, suspicion. They're trying to figure out if this witness is the real deal or a dangerous distraction, maybe even a trap set by the monster.
Exactly. They're walking a tightrope, trying to balance caution with the desperate need for answers. And all the while, the clock is ticking. And remember, Rossi is also closing in on a possible connection between the victims, something hidden in plain sight all along.
So what is it? What's the connection?
Rossi becomes fixated on something that seems, at first, completely insignificant. The victims' professions. There's no obvious link, right? But as he digs deeper, he starts to notice a chilling pattern. Each victim, in some way, worked in a field that symbolized or interacted with themes of love, beauty, or passion.
Hold on a minute. Are you suggesting that the monster is choosing victims based on their professions? That's a whole new level of, well, I don't even know what to call it. It's chilling.
It is, isn't it? Because it suggests a level of premeditation, a calculated cruelty that's truly horrifying. It's not just random acts of violence anymore. There's a twisted logic at work here, a deliberate selection process.
But how does knowing this help Rossi find the killer?
Well, the sources don't reveal if this leads him to a specific suspect or a location, but it does change the course of the investigation. It gives Rossi a new focus, a new sense of urgency. He's racing against time, not only to save his daughter, but to stop the monster before they can strike again.
So we have Andrea and Enzo chasing this mysterious witness, and Rossi on the trail of this chilling pattern.
Do their paths ever converge?
That's the big question, right? The sources are, well, they're frustratingly ambiguous on that point. They hint at a possible connection, but ultimately leave us in suspense.
That's quite a cliffhanger to end on. But I guess that's fitting for a case as complex and unsettling as the Monster of Florence. It's a case that's full of unanswered questions, of shadows lurking beneath the surface. And even now, all these years later, the mystery continues to fascinate and terrify.
And I think that's part of what makes this case so compelling, so enduring. It's a reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones in fairy tales. They're the ones that walk among us, hidden in plain sight. And sometimes the most terrifying monster of all is the one we create within ourselves. The monster of fear, of suspicion, of the unknown. And on that note, we'll have to leave this deep dive here for now.
But the conversation doesn't end here. What are your thoughts on the Monster of Florence? What do you think happened? Share your theories with us.